Welcome to the Communicating Capital podcast, where finance and communication get a fresh perspective. Hosted by a dynamic team of women in the industry, we're here to redefine the conversation with candid, no-nonsense interviews featuring top executives, communication experts, and industry leaders. With a focus on clarity and real-world impact, we make the complex world of finance digestible and relatable. Whether you're a seasoned professional or you're just interested in our world, we're here to help you navigate the space in new and exciting ways. Today, I'm speaking with somebody I've had the pleasure of knowing both personally and professionally for over 5 years. We actually pursued our MBAs together, and during that time, I witnessed firsthand her remarkable intelligence, drive, and innovative thinking. I'm so excited to introduce Fiona Tang. She's an entrepreneur, a global marketing consultant, and a founder of Tang Dynasty Consulting, which we call TDC throughout this episode. TDC is dedicated to empowering brands by delivering innovative, reliable, impactful marketing solutions that not only inspire hope, but also foster measurable, positive outcomes. With a mission grounded in interactive collaboration and a steadfast commitment to integrity, Fiona and her team at TDC expertly transform challenges into growth opportunities, one strategic step at a time. In addition to leading TDC, Fiona actually serves as Director of International Business at Hawke Media, which I know a lot of our listeners know, so this is going to be quite an impressive interview. It's one of the fastest growing marketing consultancies in the United States, where she's been instrumental in helping businesses from around the world successfully expand into the United States market. Her impressive track record includes guiding international brands in crafting unique go-to-market strategies and executing integrated marketing plans with precision. And among her many, many wins, Fiona was recognized by Forbes China as one of the 100 outstanding overseas returnees, further cementing her role as a thought leader in the global marketing landscape. Fiona, I'm so honored to have you here. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much for the wonderful introduction. It's an absolute pleasure to be here today.
I'm so excited, Fiona. We're excited that you're here too. I feel like your journey has been nothing short of remarkable. Can you tell us about your path of working with Hawke Media and then launching your own business, which enables you to connect yourself and your clients worldwide?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of a cliche. All the career starts with a young age girl fascinating about marketing world, but that's actually true. I was really intrigued by the TV ads when I was young, and all the TV shows I just shows no interest, but just the ads, I feel like it really is magical feeling to me, and inspiring, where you can bring a lot of feelings just through videos and imaginations. So yeah, with that, I studied marketing information system in college and then got my MBA with you at Pepperdine with a global business focus. So that's kind of how everything started. Yeah, and then working with Hawke Media is kind of interesting start. I started as executive assistant to the CEO at Hawke Media, Eric Huberman. So how that started was I was thinking, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to be the best. If I want to be the best, then I better learn from the best. So with that kind of mindset, I was like, okay, let me apply for assistant to the CEO position. I think that's where I can learn from the best, right? From a CEO of a marketing agency. So yeah, that's kind of how everything started.
I didn't know that. And that's so you to be like, okay, where is the best person and how can I work under them and learn as much as I can? I feel like that is Fiona in a box. I love that. Something that's interesting to me is that you do help international brands develop unique go-to-market strategies. And I know this firsthand by watching your work, reading some of the stuff that you do. What type of companies do you typically work with?
So to me, there are 4 types: budget or scale agnostic. But pretty much what I'm looking at is the founder, if they have the mindset of really grow together or not. But to break down in category, what are the companies I typically work with? One is they're Amazon focused to start, and then now they want to transition to Shopify. That'll be one to start. And then second will be if they have a factory or manufacturing in China and they want to expand overseas. That will be the second part. And the third part will be VC invested companies or VC invested D2C companies. That was a huge trend before. And then fourth will be large corporations or large brands. They want to have their own sub-brands that's differentiated from their original brand. So that will be the 4 different categories.
That's so interesting. And I feel like all of these brands and all these types of companies do need help, is what you're saying. How do you help them?
Well, just through conversations, I guess, to see what kind of resources they need. And over the years, I built my own TDC consulting company. Pretty much it's just start with a conversation I was having with a director on campus at Pepperdine. That's kind of how everything started.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was speaking with the director on campus, and then she was just asking me, she was just complaining about something, and then I just kind of solved her problem in the conversation. And then she was just like, oh, Fiona, can I hire you as a consultant to help me with other projects? I was like, yeah, sure. And then, starting my own consulting company has been my dream. I thought I won't be able to do it till I'm 50 or 60. But then she was like, yeah, why don't you just start your consulting company like right here and then? I was like, okay. And then so that's kind of how everything started. So yeah, sorry, I forgot a question, but that's kind of how everything started.
That's perfect. I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that you started it during your MBA program at Pepperdine.
That's how everything started.
Oh my gosh.
It was very magical. At the time, I was like, this is kind of like dream come true. Walking alongside the campus, looking at the beach, on the other hand.
Right.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. It was so beautiful to be in Malibu and then all of the different locations that they have. But Fiona, I remember being in a class with you and I was like, I need to be put in a group with her because I know she's going to get the job done and we're going to win. And you have the winning mentality where I was like, I was always ready to work harder. And it was because of you leading our group. And so I loved that. And that's why I think we were able to get along so well is I was like, she wants to win. She wants to do a good job. She's not here just to, learn a little, get her MBA and move on. She wants to like actually immerse herself in the process here. So I loved it.
Yeah. Because at the time, I think when we were at MBA, I was also thinking about expanding businesses globally as well. So that's kind of where Hawke Media and we were talking about maybe expanding overseas over one day. That kind of the conversation started 3 months into the assistant position when I was with him. And we have a Chinese client, a really big one. Not sure if I can mention the name here, but they're like the top company in China. They had a Chinese team went to the US to meet the team in person. And then, of course, I'm the only Chinese at a company. And then so I was the one tasked to greet them and then meet with them and then everything. So he just told me like, hey, Fiona, maybe one day we can expand to China. That was 3 months into the position. And I was like, oh, sure. I was like, sure, I'm going to fight for it. I'm going to work really hard to make that come true. And then a few years later, like it actually came true. So I'm pretty excited.
That's so beautiful. And I love hearing that journey because it inspires so many people. And Fiona, I'm just going to backtrack because we were just talking about, because I know your can-do attitude and I know your creative approach to problem solving because I witnessed it firsthand. Not only do I witness it now in the work that you do, but what we did during our MBA. Can you share an example of a time when you had to develop an innovative solution to drive results for one of your clients?
Yeah. There are so many. But one of the most, I have the most fonded memory, I think is like one of my first event clients back in the days. How it started was I was doing a webinar online and the client kind of just found me after the webinar. And then we started talking about how they can improve their brands, what are the different strategies, what are different things they can do. We were just pretty much brainstorming. I was not looking at the client as a potential client, but then more so like someone who I can really help with, because from the conversation I learned, they've never went abroad and then they have little knowledge about what the landscape in the US is. I just genuinely wanted to help them. So I was brainstorming with them. And then one day the person was just like, hey, Fiona, we really want to do like a very impressive like event in the US. Do you have any ideas? At the time, I didn't do events. And so I told him like, hey, there are some options. I think you can potentially do A, B, C, and D. I weighed out the pros and cons to them and then estimate budget if they were to do something like this in the US. And then kind of the time frame to prepare. So they have a general idea and then they can look for vendors. And that's kind of how it started. And then after a week, they just like, hey, Fiona, we want to work with you on this. Can you help us do this? And I was like, okay. I've actually never done this before. I don't know. And then they were like, no, we trust you, We felt the genuine and we felt like you want to help us. So can you do this? I was like, okay, this is my first time doing this. I'm just being very straight and honest. I've never done this before. Thank you so much for your trust, but let's figure this out. So that's kind of how everything started with that client. I really appreciate, my client investing in their trust in me. And then they were a returning client the year after as well for another event because the first event was successful. So that's kind of how I normally approach problems my clients are facing, is like kind of see what are resources we can do to help them, come up with strategies. And if I cannot, then I'll just be honest with them and refer other vendors to them. If I can, then, definitely want to work with them.
I love hearing that. I like the fact that you were just trying to help in the best way you can. And then they ended up being a client. I mean, there's no better ethos. I guess that's it, but better ethics in a way. If you're looking at companies that need help, You're just there to help them. You just want to lend a helping hand. It ended up being so fruitful. Good job on that. I love hearing
Thank you.
it. Something that's interesting to me is that you work with all different types of executives and business owners from so many different industries, whether they're in China, whether they're in the US. I've heard of other ones that are quite worldly. How do you approach leadership and interacting with these executives?
Just be honest with them. I think that's the best approach because my rule of thumb, I think is that since I was a kid, because I'm kind of lazy, I don't want to keep track of what I said. So I just feel like, I'll just be honest with everyone, so I don't need to keep track. So I can tell everyone straight up what's going on. And I think they really appreciate it because as an executive, as a leader, they don't really have time to deal with all the BS, and then they just want to get the straight answer. So I normally just tell them like the fact. I think they really appreciate that.
I like that. That's perfect. That's perfect. Okay, Fiona, another question that I have for you is that most of your companies that are in China are looking to gain exposure in the US, or at least that's my general understanding. I know that they have a huge business in China, in Asia, but they want to move over to the US. So what are some of the biggest challenges that these companies might face, and how do you help them navigate those challenges?
I would say there are so many challenges, like language barriers, time zone difference, culture differences, all of that. But I think the most challenging one is what I face kind of every day is the understanding of marketing in the US and our understanding of branding is so different because in China, how it works, because I just came back a few years ago. So when I came back, I have to learn everything from the beginning. Like in China, when I came back like 2021, apparently no one uses cash anymore. So, but I was in the US, everything is like cash or card. You have options, but in China, there's no card options. There are options, but then people just don't use it. So everyone just use a tap on their phone or just scan their QR code on their phone and then it's paid. It's super convenient. So it's like I have to learn how to function in China pretty much. So for brands, pretty much it's the same. They need to learn how things work in the US. Like there's no QR code scanning in the US that universally acceptable in the US, but more so like a tab or a insert or a cash, all of that or swipe. So those are the actions are taking in the US. So with that in mind, there's so much different in branding as well because the habits different, the consumer behavior is different. So getting my clients to understand, for example, when I keep using this example, but it's kind of exaggerated example, like when you are trying to sell a bottle in China, you probably need to focus more on the functionality, the color, if there's any added benefits to it. All of that, the functionality part is the big part. And then also if you're price friendly to a lot of the consumers, that's the one thing you need to consider. But in the US, if you want to sell a bottle, just to exaggerate, so it's easy to understand. You might want to focus more on the emotional side of things. Like, if you have this bottle, then you can rule the world or something like this, right? And then if you have a target audience as a teacher, just for instance, then you probably want to say, if you have this bottle, then your students are going to get straight A's. Or if you're a student, then if you have this bottle, you get straight A's on your exam. Something like this. Exaggerating example to show, how the mindset is different, how the focus is different. So when I'm navigating these changes is first I need to understand where they're coming from. So like me, when I was learning, like scanning my QR code, like, okay, that's a different motion on your hand to do that. So build the muscle for me to think in their shoes and then understand where they're coming from, understand their logic, and then educate them on, what the branding looks like in the US, what the marketing landscape look like in the US. So it's like a very long education process for me when building a relationship with my clients and also to help them navigate those changes.
I like that you're mentioning the cultural differences and like also the whole market's different. So I didn't even know this. So there's a universal code that you can scan and pay in China and it works everywhere?
Yeah, like pretty much use WeChat or Alipay. So, but
That's amazing.
It's different. So
we should have that here.
Yeah, it's different. I was like I speak Chinese, but then I look like a foreigner when I was paying stuff. And then I remember I went to Starbucks the other day. No, the first year when I came back, I gave the guy like a 50. The person was like in shock. Like, we can accept cash, but do you have a QR code?
Do you have a QR code instead? That's wild. That's so wild. So that's good that you know these things so that you can advise these clients that are coming to the US because you know how it is here and they think that it might be how it is there. So that's very interesting to hear. Fiona, I would like to learn more about the cultural differences and market nuances that play a huge role in the success of a brand. How do you adapt your strategies to account for these differences when companies expand internationally? That was a mouthful, but it's important to know.
I think that's a very excellent question because culture difference is kind of not only a huge topic for companies expanding from China to the US, but also for companies even within the US to expand culturally, through different cultures, navigate different things. I think it just looks more apparent when we're comparing from, internationally. So how do I help them? I think it's just through genuine conversations. And what I need from my client is to be honest with me so I can better understand, what their current situation really is and what they really want. Because there are clients I know, a lot of Chinese companies, I don't know like if there are other cultures, they have this kind of mindset. But what I know about Chinese company is they tend to hire in-house team. They want to have everyone in-house, not outsourced. So that's kind of a general mindset. But in the US is, and also with Hawke Media is we are your outsourced CMOs. So it's all about outsource efficiency, all of that. Let the specialty do their thing, and then you just focus on what you're good at, right? So with that's the kind of mindset different based on the culture differences. So what I generally help them is to help them understand it's okay to have outsourced team and it's okay to have a team outside your company. And that can actually function a lot better. And then to educate them on what that looks like. And then be very upfront with them. Like, hey, I understand you want to hire in-house. And right now, if you're transitioning, if you simply want to work with me to transition into in-house or have someone to train your team, understand the landscape, and then hire in-house, I'm totally okay with that. No client is going to stay with you forever. That's how companies grow as well as a consulting company. So that's what I tell them. Like, if you want to hire in-house, just let me know. So I can, when I work with you, I can train your team accordingly based on your timeline expectations. Just be very upfront. With my clients, it's very hard to be upfront with you. Like, hey, I might disengage with you in 6 months. It's like hard to open the conversation because it's very much like what we call a face, like a 面子. 面子 kind of is a term where it's very face focused. Where I don't want to lose my face. I don't want to embarrass people. I don't want to say I want to disengage in 6 months. But, to bring the conversation up front for them so they spare them the embarrassment.
It's so interesting to learn. It is so interesting. But you're doing a phenomenal job. And also, as mentioned in our intro, you were named on Forbes 100 China. I find that to be one of the most incredible achievements out of anyone that's in my network. And there's a lot of people that are in my network. Can you tell me what that recognition meant to you personally and professionally and how it has influenced your career?
Yeah, thank you. That was kind of unexpected, to be honest. I was applying and I was just like, okay, let me just give it a try and see if, this can work. Yeah, as a kind of end of the year gift to myself, kind of sort of a courage that I keep telling myself, you got this, it's okay. If you don't get it, it's okay. But then I end up getting it. And then I think at the time I was still consulting for UCLA. They have an MQE program and they were trying to bridge the culture gap from US to China, but then for Chinese students and then all the other APAC students that are studying in the US, trying to help them understand how to get a job back in their hometown or how to get a job in the US, navigating the job space. So that's kind of the context when that happened. So once I got the recognition from Forbes China, I was like, wow, okay, I'm actually doing something very meaningful. Not that I didn't know before the recognition. It just after recognition, I realized how much impact that, the things I was doing really is, not only helping the clients overseas from China to grow overseas into the US for e-commerce business, but also helping students at the same time. So it's kind of personal mission fulfillment as well, because my personal goal is to help, to be the bridge pretty much, to help Chinese companies to grow overseas and help all the other Chinese students to figure out where their passion is. Because I know it's a lonely journey along the way, because I was once an international student in the US as well. It was very confusing. There's a lot of unknown at the time when I first entered the US. That was like a very long time ago. Now I think about it. But when you were in it at a moment, it seems so long ago. It seems like it's never going to end. When the anxiety is going to end, it's never going to end. So the best thing is to embrace it and accept everything and then march on. So that's kind of what I've been telling my students as well. Yeah, so the recognition is very meaningful to me because it kind of pushed me forward to do more good things to my clients and to my students. There were even students reaching out to me like asking, hey Fiona, can you be my mentor just outside the program? It was like, when students are saying that to you is like, wow, okay, I guess I'm really helping someone, like, you are doing something, but it's like also good to get recognitions from elsewhere externally.
I love hearing that. That was my favorite interview question of the whole interview thus far. That was so good and so beautifully put. I find you I had no idea that you were working at UCLA too, because I remember seeing it on Instagram that you were in Forbes, and I was like, oh my gosh, I have to go reach out to her and like say congratulations. But I didn't know exactly what you were doing then. So it's interesting to see how it all comes back, and it all comes full circle, because here we are years later speaking and doing that as well. Talking about schooling and education, I know we both shared our experience in pursuing our MBAs. We did it together. How has your education shaped your approach to business and marketing, and what lessons from that time do you apply even today?
I guess MBA, it was not wow. Now that I look back, it was, I don't know how we put through,
It was a lot of work.
Yeah, it was a lot. Like there's so many case studies, so many presentations.
So many meetings.
Yeah, so many meetings, so many group meetings. And then like, I'm just glad there's no homework, like the quizzes. I think it just opened my horizon a little bit to see, like through the case studies and through the conversations, and we were able to be so fortunate to be in touch with so many people from different industries. I remember there's one person from not Boeing but another company doing the airplane maintenance.
Yes, I know who you're talking about. She's on. It's a woman, right? She's on the top of my head.
No, it's a guy. Maybe it's like
different person.
Yeah,
different person.
Yeah, to me it's a guy, and then he was like maintenance the airplane.
Okay, definitely different. I was thinking something so different.
Oh, okay. Yeah. And then, so it kind of, I didn't even know there's a thing. I thought it's just like machine, but actually it's human, involved. So there's so many surprises in that. And then there's bankers in the classroom, and there are like people working at the stadium. And then there are people from math school, and then there are people like from different industry looking for a jump in their position, their career, or switching to a different industry. And then people from fashion as well. So many different aspects for me to learn. And then after MBA, and then also throughout MBA, I got to learn, there are so many different aspects of their jobs. But then kind of I learned operation stuff, finance stuff. Also through Hawke Media. At the time, I was doing so many different projects within a company. So I get a kind of a taste of what different function of the department looks like. But then being in the MBA program, actually, I was speaking with the person that's in charge of that department. So kind of get me a new perspective on how the operation actually looks like. And then we have the simulation class. I remember it was very fun, but also very, very disastrous at the beginning, because everyone's trying to figure out how to minimize the budget and then get the most return from this stimulation. So that was a very real experience to me, actually, to see how the budgets were being spent and how that kind of looked like were gonna turn out in real life. And from that, when I'm running my own business right now, I'm like constantly thinking about the cost, and then how do we maximize the return for my clients, but also lower the cost from my end, and also keep learning, because once you're learning, then your value is kind of gonna increase.
Absolutely. I remember what you're talking about the business simulation thing. And if there's anybody that I would have not wanted been up against, would be you, because it was a competition. I remember it being a competition, and every week I was like, I need to win this, and it was so difficult to like figure out how to put all those pieces together. And that's what you do today, is like you literally are putting all the pieces together for your clients. It's beautiful to see that happen. So amazing.
Yeah, it's very interesting experience. Yeah,
I love it. And Fiona, before we wrap up, is there any final advice or thoughts you'd like to share with our listeners, especially those that might be interested in your industry?
Yeah, I think it's just a can-do attitude. That would go a long way. And then also dream big. When I was a girl, like I mentioned earlier, starting my own consulting company at age 50 or 60, that was my dream. But I'm actually doing it right now at 20 something. Yeah, so I think it's just, if you dream big and do it, actually execute. Don't just think. And then if you just think, you might get anxiety or overwhelmed over time. But if you actually write everything down and start thinking about it, start planning, and make things, just move it forward and move it along, it's going to come true.
I love that so much. Thank you so much for joining us, Fiona. You're incredible.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. So for our listeners who want to connect with Fiona or learn more about our journey, be sure to check out the links in our show notes. As always, thank you for tuning in to Communicating Capital, and we'll see you next time.